Our perception creates our reality. The way in which we perceive something is the way that it will be for us. Perception is merely a construct of the mind. It is not the absolute or the only way. There is always a choice. But we often don't realize this. Much of our perception is deeply rooted in these old habits and ways of thinking. These habits are so deeply embedded in our way of being that we don't even realize that they are steering the ship. For the majority of my life, I was a compulsive worrier. I worried about everything because it allured me into believing that I had more control over things if I would just worry about them to death. Truth remains. I had no more control, just a whole hell of a lot more anxiety and stress. The good news is that we can change these habits. We can actually change the way in which we perceive things, which ultimately paints an entirely different reality for us. For me, I committed to changing my habit of worrying into one of trusting and believing. Some days it is easier than others. But I can tell you this, trusting and believing is profoundly more enjoyable than worrying and obsessing. Choose to exhale that worry away. That one right there, if even just for a moment. And with that being read, I want to welcome you back to the 127 Fit podcast. Today's guest is a mom, yoga instructor, wellness and empowerment coach, self-love advocate, and the creator of the Choose Love Project. Today's guest is Jarrett. Jennifer, I want to welcome you to the 127 Fit podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Absolutely. So Jennifer, we're going to jump right into things, and we're going to kick things off with a little bit of a warm-up. And the first question that I have for you is, how do you start your day, and do you have some sort of specific morning routine that you like to stick to most mornings?
The mornings are my absolute favorite time of the day. I go to bed and I really honestly cannot wait to get up in the morning because it's my sacred, quiet time. Before my children get up, before my partner gets up, it's just a time where I can do whatever I need to do. So I fight for it. I really protect it as this non-negotiable for me. I'm up at 5 a.m. most days. I get up, I brush my teeth, I scrape my tongue, I have some water, and I'll often sit for 5 minutes or so just to get ready for the day. And then I'm either going for a run, or going and doing a little bit of work on my third baby, the Choose Love Project. But it's really my creative time. It's my really sacred creative space that I just love.
Now, how important? So let's say, because you are a mom of two, and they're both really young and stuff. So let's just say that you don't get to have that morning routine or kind of that preparation time for your day. I mean, I know that you're able to still make it through the day. It can still be a great day or whatever.
Barely.
But just sharing with the listeners, just the importance of how we start our day is setting the tone for the rest of our days. Is that something that you agree upon? And just maybe expand on that a little bit for you personally.
Absolutely. I adhere to that completely. And it is a dramatic difference. I show up very differently if I am grounded, if I've moved my body, if I've connected to myself and had that time for myself, if I've been outside, had some really good time to breathe and just be before we get thrown into the chaos of the day. And so I am a much, much, much better version of myself. I am much more able to show up with patience, with kindness, with even just a willingness and a strength and an ability to do the stuff that happens. They're 4 and 2, so it's unpredictable. And So yeah, that is I really believe in the importance of setting your day, setting the tone for your day with some sort of ritual that resonates with you, that allows you the opportunity to land in yourself. Because there have been so many times in my life where like I set the alarm for the very last minute, that I have to. And then I get up and I'm already like freaking out. My head is spinning.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm racing to try to catch up.
Yeah.
And that's just, it's not a good place to start from.
Yeah, for sure.
So I've committed, and I've been doing this for the last couple years, but getting up at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
I go to bed earlier. My life is so much better.
Absolutely.
With that kind of... it's like a sacred structure.
Yeah.
So.
And it's preparation for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
cool.
absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah, and the reason why I asked that question to all my guests is because I know for me personally, the morning ritual, the morning routine, the morning preparation, whatever words you want to throw out to describe it, is it's everything for me. Because I firmly believe that how you start your day is how you're going to end your day, and if you can get those small wins in the morning, it's just gonna build that momentum throughout the rest of the day. And even if you hit a speed bump or you run into a wall, or you don't accomplish maybe everything you want later in the day, it's like, hey, you can look back at the beginning and say, hey, well, I took care of those things. I already won the day, so to speak.
Absolutely. And I think people get a little intimidated when they're just like getting ready to start out on that kind of practice of establishing rituals, because it's like, well, what's a ritual? I don't even know what a ritual means to me. And so it can be anything.
Absolutely.
Anything can be kind of that sacred opportunity to just land in yourself.
Yeah.
So it can be having a cup of coffee. It can be making your bed. Yeah. Just simple acts where you're just totally dialed in and present.
For sure.
Yeah,
I know for me, like writing, I there's like certain words and things that I'm striving for in my life. I just have this notebook, and I write them a certain amount of times, and then some of my write left-handed, because I'm trying to challenge myself to write left-handed. I mean, so there's all kinds of different things. I've been doing that for well over a year now. The whole writing different words, and it changes in different seasons of my life. And I've been doing the right or the left-handed writing for well over a year. And it's just So what I'm just agreeing with you, and for the listeners out there, like, don't be intimidated. Like, again, cup of coffee, brush your teeth, write like. I'm thankful for today 5 times, or whatever, movement, breathing, mindfulness, meditation, yoga, like just whatever kind of gets the fire, burning inside of you to start the day. Just do that. So cool, very, very cool. So Jennifer, the second question I have is, and if you have more than one, please feel free to share, but do you have like a favorite book or a book that you like to gift often?
I do. I actually had to write them down because I have a number of favorite books. Okay. One of the books that really came to me at a time when I absolutely needed it and just helped me move forward at a really difficult time in my life was When Things Fall Apart by Pema Chodron.
Okay, cool.
She is just such a gift. So When Things Fall Apart by Pema Chodron, Start Where You Are, also by Pema Chodron, The Power of Now, and New Earth by Eckhart Tolle have been completely transformative books for me, transformative influences. And I've also really enjoyed The Untethered Soul.
Okay, yeah. That one's been brought up.
By Michael Singer. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's been brought up, I think, a handful of times
really?
with other guests.
Really? Isn't that fun? It's in the ether. It's in the ether.
That's cool. Now, is there... And again, if there's more than one, please feel free to share. But do you have like a favorite quote or mantra that's been very impactful in your life? One that I use when I have different mantras for different times. Yes, absolutely.
So when I feel myself spinning out of control in my mind and in my thoughts, which I can do, I'm a very fast mover, multitasker, trying to do all the things all the time, right? So when I know that I need to just slow it down, it's be here now.
Cool.
Be here now. Feet on the ground, breath in the body, be here now. And then when I am noticing that I am approaching something from a less than place, or a place where I feel less than, or where I'm questioning my own worthiness, where if I feel fearful, which I'm very familiar with.
Yeah.
I've spent a lot of my life being very afraid. Courage, dear heart.
Courage, dear heart.
Courage, dear heart.
Awesome.
And that just lands in a way for me that it's like, okay, courage. You're afraid. It's okay. Just have courage. Be brave and do it anyway.
Right. Now, with Be Here Now and Courage to Your Heart, are those two mantras or phrases or quotes that you just kind of came up with yourself, or did you come across those from somebody else?
No, Be Here Now, I think I might be
It's
wrong.
okay. I mean, you don't...
I'm pretty sure... Ram Dass, maybe.
Okay.
I'm sorry if I'm attributing that incorrectly. And then Courage to Your Heart is from a poem by C.S. Lewis.
Oh, okay, cool. Awesome.
Again, I think.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. I just didn't know, because some of the
Yeah.
I'm a big quote mantra guy, and some of the stuff like is just as I'm going through life, and it's like, and I consider myself like, I call it like I'm a wordy. I love words. I love phrases. I love quotes, mantras, all that. So sometimes I'll see something on Instagram or in a book and then apply it to my life. And sometimes it's just my own kind of words that I've kind of put together because of a situation or a struggle that I'm going through. So that's why I just kind of asked.
Well, and when you internalize it so much,
right.
it becomes so familiar and so known
right.
that it kind of does become your own in a way.
For sure. Absolutely.
The other one is Choose Love.
Choose Love, yep.
It's just been, since my mother passed away in 2011, it has been my beacon.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. All right, so the last question within the warm-up is, do you have a favorite or most listened to podcast?
Yeah. My most listened to podcast is Goop.
Goop?
Yeah, Goop. I love to turn it on when I'm running.
Now, what's that one about? I've never heard of that.
Oh, you haven't?
No, I haven't. No,
okay, so Goop is I don't even. It's like a way of living, sort of site and philosophy and everything, like by Gwyneth Paltrow.
Oh, okay.
And so they host really amazing innovators, people who are thinking in a different way, people who are very, very, very much into wellness and mind, body, spirit connection. I think that you'd really love. A lot of the guests are really amazing.
Cool. Yeah. That sounds great. I mean, there's so many out there.
I know.
It's hard to, and most of us kind of get are like one or two that we really are our go-to.
Yeah.
So I'll definitely check that one out. I appreciate you sharing that. So, all right, Jennifer. So we're going to just kind of jump into kind of your backstory, kind of like where you grew up, kind of like what maybe the younger years were like, if you don't mind sharing a little bit. And then and just kind of share like were you involved in like, sports or music, and just kind of paint a picture for us of the younger years for Jennifer.
Okay. So I was born in Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay, cool.
And I'm the oldest.
All right.
I'll describe my family in just a minute. But I was born in Cleveland, but grew up mostly in Indiana, in Indianapolis, on the north side of Indianapolis. My mother and father were from Marion, Indiana. They met in high school and were high school sweethearts. Okay. They got married when they were, I think, 21. Had me when they were 25. Okay. And then had my two brothers.
All right.
I was born in Cleveland, then we moved to Michigan, then we moved to Chicago, then we moved to Indiana when I was in third grade. But we moved around a lot because my father was in medical school doing all of that. So he was in school, he was working, he was just, really busy, really busy. Sure. So it was my mom and my two brothers and I a lot of the time. And then my parents, when we moved to Indiana, that was in third grade, my parents separated and divorced pretty soon after that. So they divorced when I was in third grade, and then, went through that whole thing, which at that point was, that's a pretty interesting time in childhood to have that happen, because I was old enough to be aware, but still young enough to like not totally understand.
Right,
so I had a lot of confusion, a lot of I just didn't know what was going on. I struggled a lot with it.
Yeah.
And then both of my parents remarried. My mother in the summer before 7th grade, and then my father in November of 7th grade.
Okay.
And so with that, I had to change schools. And that to me was utterly devastating. Looking back, one of the best things that ever could have happened to me. But at that moment in time, it was pretty awful. And my stepdad, who's an amazing, wonderful man, has two daughters.
Okay.
One is 3 months younger than I am, and then the other one is 5 years younger than I am.
Okay.
So we all kind of like, it was the Brady Bunch.
Yeah.
It was the total Brady Bunch. We moved into their home that they lived in with their mom, and it was just this kind of interesting like meshing together of two families. And then my father married a woman who's wonderful. I'm so blessed that the parents in my life are incredible. All four of them. But my dad and stepmom ended up having 4 more children.
Oh wow! Okay.
So
you got a lot of siblings.
A lot of siblings. So, and my youngest sibling now, she just finished her freshman year in high school.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm the oldest of everybody. So, there are a lot of people. There are a lot of people in my life. I would say that my childhood was really just full of people.
Right,
my mom was one of 9 kids.
Wow.
And so cousins everywhere. You know, we grew up going to this lake in northern Indiana, and you know, those are my best memories of summertime at the lake, just being a kid and playing outside and catching fireflies and tubing and getting really bad sunburns because they didn't put on sunscreen back then. But so that was kind of, those were the younger years, and really into high school as well, that there was just a lot of change. And as a result of all that, I really just kind of started really resisting change. But as far as things that I was involved in, I was kind of like the kid who I was really intimidated by things.
Okay.
And so I would get really nervous to do new things. And if I didn't think I was going to be good at it, I would like shy away from it. I drove my mother absolutely crazy. But I found soccer.
Okay.
It's
a great sport.
7th grade. Great sport. We had so much fun. Played that throughout high school. And then, you know, did all the other things as a younger kid too. You know, just dance classes and whatnot. But movement really became a big part of my life after college.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Now, I just want to touch on a few things there that you mentioned. You said, you know, when your mom and dad, like initially they got that divorce and everything, it was very confusing for you because if I remember correctly, you said it was like right around the 3rd grade time frame. What I mean, and obviously 3rd grade, like I mean, I can remember my 3rd grade teacher. I can probably remember a few things about like that time frame in life, but you know, it's not really that clear. So, but you know, you said that there was a lot of confusion for you. Did that confusion eventually kind of clear up as mom remarried and dad remarried and kind of life continued on, or was that something that you really held on to as you grew up?
Yes, both. So there were a number of different levels of confusion. One was what happened. I just didn't understand what happened because from my perception, everything was fine.
Right.
But as a parent now, I see that you want to protect your children from anything that might unsettle them.
Right.
So knowing that, I know that that's what my parents were doing. So as time has gone on, the confusion around what happened and the whys behind it all, that's all become very clear.
Right. Okay.
And so there's a lot of healing that's occurred around that. And I totally understand it. And I have it's actually not a triggering thing at this point at all.
Okay.
Another level of the confusion was I was feeling all of these things as this little girl.
Right.
Like, and I've always been a big feeler. And the people around me just didn't know what to do with it.
Right.
And I am not laying any blame at all.
Yeah.
Like if one of my daughters is like that, I probably wouldn't know exactly what to do with it either, because especially in times of intensity like divorce, they're just trying to, we're all just trying to move through it.
Right.
So I was having all these big feelings. I didn't know how to feel them. I didn't know what to do with them. My mom and dad were really just trying to make sure that we were okay.
Right.
And I figured out that by concealing what I was really feeling, I let them know that everything was okay, and then they didn't have to worry as much, because I saw how they were struggling. And so I didn't want to contribute to that. So it was like, okay, let me just like bury this down, or like disregard it or dismiss it, with absolutely no consciousness that that's what I was doing.
Right.
At that age,
you're
just a little girl.
Yeah.
But I love my mom and dad so much, I didn't want to hurt them any more than they were already hurting. So that's a lot of where the confusion was. It was like, what am I what do I do with this?
Right. So everything was internalized.
Yeah.
And you kind of just had those big feelings that were inside of you. You just kind of held them in and just kind of continued on. Now, you mentioned at the beginning, and then you kind of mentioned as you were sharing and unpacking a little bit of your backstory about kind of like having the struggling with fearfulness and, kind of just like not wanting to step out and try new things. Do you think internalizing some of those big feelings from that, and I mean, it's a traumatic, divorce is a traumatic thing for kids. Maybe that's not the terminology that you would use, but for that experience at that time in your life, internalizing those big feelings, do you think that was maybe the beginning of maybe some of that, the festering of some of that fear and not wanting to step out and try new things because of maybe something that was going on with that divorce? And maybe if you did try something, you see what I'm trying to say? Because it's like, here's mom and dad, everything in your perspective seems like it's good and it's right and everything, and then all of a sudden there's this brokenness and maybe some sort of like chaos of like we're not together anymore and all that. So do you think that maybe was kind of the beginning of some of that struggle with fear and not wanting to step out and try new things because of maybe something just internally that you were trying to hold in? Or
I think that it was absolutely a contributing factor. I can't pinpoint it as the beginning of that, because I remember being a fearful child even before this time, being just afraid. And so, but I do believe that process that we went through and the internalization of all of the feelings and just really learning that I seemingly made things better for everybody if I concealed what was going on for me. That certainly played into my fears of expressing myself and showing up fully as myself. And again, I'm 42 years old now, and so I have the words to explain that now. I didn't at that time. And it was just part of my process. But the fear in combination, in conjunction with that internalizing, that holding on to, it just became this really kind of illusion of armor. It was this illusion of armor that I put on myself to protect myself from change, from being vulnerable, from the uncertainty, from the devastation that could come with divorce. All of those things. It became this like, let me put my armor on so I can protect myself.
And it becomes like a comfort zone, doesn't it? Because I've struggled with anxiety since I was like a tween, and even though it causes a lot of chaos within my mind and within my life, there's also a comfort to it because and like this control thing. It's hard to express with words, but somebody that has gone through something similar or on a different level, but they can relate and they can understand like what I'm saying. But what was that kind of that armor? Was it also a comfort, even though it's not healthy for us, even though we don't necessarily like it, and it does cause this internal chaos and turmoil? There is, in a weird way, a comfort. Would you agree?
I agree, and it's elusive, and I think that it's that act of self-protection, because it's like all these things are happening around you as a small child or whenever in your life, and so how do you protect yourself from the hurt? And for me, it was this building up of this armor, which, yes, in many ways felt comforting. Yeah. I felt for a moment in time secure and safe from it. Very quickly, the allure of the armor goes away. Right. And then it comes back, and then it goes away, but you start to realize that it's really freaking heavy to wear that armor. Yeah. And it keeps you really closed off from any kind of meaningful connection, any kind of sense of belonging, any kind of love. But yes, initially, the job of the armor was to protect. To protect, and to comfort,
So, in regards to kind of like even because for me personally, like if I think about doing something that I know is going to make me uncomfortable, that right there, just the thought is like a trigger of like anxiety, and then my mind speeds up. Is that very similar to what you experienced at that time of life, where you were just like, you had this armor on, some sort of comfort, some sort of just making you feel a certain way, but even like thinking about like, maybe talking to somebody or whatever some of those things were for you that were uncomfortable, did that really conjure up a lot of anxiety? Just the thought of stepping outside of like that armor that was protecting you?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, absolutely. Yeah. And it became the armor became so thick that I almost couldn't even see myself anymore. Right. Yeah. I almost couldn't know who I was anymore. Yeah. And because it was so anxiety provoking to step outside of that, like how do I say it? Became even more internalized and even more lost to myself. So that I was constantly looking outside of myself for other people to tell me who to be. Like, you tell me, please, so-and-so, tell me who I am. Tell me who I need to be so that I'm not going to feel this pain that I need to protect myself from. Right, yeah. I thought everybody else had the answers for who I should be so that I could then reveal myself, take the armor off and reveal myself. And obviously that's not true. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that's some deep stuff. That's what I love, because this is the type of stuff that just impacts people, because we all have a story, and we all have struggles, we all have issues, and a lot of times in life it's hard to express the internal. So when I can have a conversation with somebody that has done that deep inner work, and we're all a work in progress, but they've really, examined like, why did this happen, and who am I, and all that, and as they share that relates to those people that are feeling or struggling with the same things, and it's all internalized, but they don't know how to express it. And so I know, as I have these conversations with guests, and we go past kind of the surface level of like, what should you eat, and how do you work out, and really get into some of this personal stuff. That's the stuff I believe that will really truly powerfully impact the people that are going to listen. Yeah. So I appreciate that, and we're gonna keep digging a little bit deeper into some of that stuff. But I just want to kind of continue to move in regards to your story. Sure. So let's talk about like post high school, kind of what did that look like, college, and then maybe post college, if you don't mind sharing that, Jennifer.
Yeah, no, I don't mind at all. So cool. I went to high school in Indianapolis. I went to Catholic high school there, Cathedral, which was a wonderful place. Yeah. And then I went to Notre Dame in South Bend for college, for undergrad. Sweet. Yeah, it was Fighting Irish. Yeah. Both Cathedral and Notre Dame were Fighting Irish. Cool. Awesome. So really just had so much fun. Yeah, college was an amazing time in my life. Cool. I didn't have a lot of direction, and I didn't have any clue what I was doing.
Right.
But I was really having a lot of fun.
Good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you study at Notre Dame then?
I studied American Studies and Spanish.
Now so I mean, you just said like you didn't really know yourself, right? You just having fun, but there had to be some sort of like interest or some sort of guidance for you to get into that. What was that, or was it just completely like I gotta study something, so here we go? Or,
kind of.
Really?
I mean, honestly, this was, I graduated in 1998, and so there were a lot of just basic offerings as far as majors were concerned,
right.
and I had to choose. And so I chose the one that offered the most, what I saw as like the opportunity to explore many different academic realms.
Yeah,
and I've always been curious about like who we are and what influences who we are as cultures, and the deeper motivations and contextual definitions that we hold for ourselves and as individuals and then as groups. So it was relevant, but it was also like, truth be told, I had no idea what else I wanted to choose.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Now, did you ever make it to like any of the football games?
Oh God, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. We weren't very good when I was there. So
you guys weren't. Okay. Yeah, I guess there was there was actually probably about a 10, 12 year period where they weren't very good.
Yeah. Yeah.
They've come back. They've come back.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So what did so you're studying kind of just to be studying because you have to, or enjoying life, having fun. What did kind of life have for you post college?
At post college, I went to Chicago.
Okay.
Because that's where a lot of my friends were going, and I wanted to just continue in that world. Like I said, I was very. I insulated myself from taking risks.
Yeah.
And from putting myself out there. So, and I kind of hid behind the idea of I have no idea what I want to do.
Yeah.
So, because I have no idea what I want to do, I'm really just probably not going to do anything that's of meaning. And so, but I went to Chicago and again, had an amazing time.
Right.
Had sort of odd jobs. And then I went back to school because I decided I wanted to be a teacher. Oh, cool. And I went to DePaul and started pursuing my master's in education there. Yeah. So, yeah. So
at this, because it's interesting for me because you're the oldest child.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And even with like the stepkids and everything, and generally speaking, the oldest child is just that like pretty dominant personality, probably more type A, very just driven, very just kind of like more of like that leader and things of that nature. And just from what you've been sharing with me up to this point of life, you seem like you were much more of maybe a follower. Is that
very much so? That's
assessment?
Very perceptive.
Yeah.
I have some type A tendencies for sure, but was not the typical first child. Yeah. In that regard. My parents were very good about encouraging us to do whatever we wanted to do.
Okay, that's
so
cool.
My dad is he's a doctor, and he really did not necessarily want any of us to pursue that path. And was very hands-off, like you can do whatever you want to do. You can be whoever you want to be. Saying all those amazing things, being super generous in that way. But I had because I was so disconnected from myself, I had no idea how to figure out who I wanted to be. Or who I was for that matter.
Yeah. Why didn't your dad want any of you to pursue being a doctor?
I don't really even know the answer to that.
Did he pretty clearly like out loud express that to you guys?
Yeah. Huh. I think he's watched medicine change a lot, and it's been a struggle. It's the demands, the academic demands, and then financially
a demand as well.
Yeah.
So,
that said, he would have been proud if any of us had pursued that. And I think at this point, maybe he would be like, it'd be really great if somebody did follow in my footsteps and they could take it over. But, but he also really just wanted to encourage us to pursue the path that most resonated
And
with us as individuals.
That's a beautiful...
Such a gift.
It's a beautiful gift to pass on, because like we were talking earlier, there's so many people that kind of like parents and adults that kind of try to force their kids in like a specific direction. And I think that is a very beautiful gift, just to say, hey, like whatever sets you on fire, go after that.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. Now, okay, so you're in Chicago. You're starting to pursue your master's degree at DePaul University, and that's a master's degree in education then. Mm-hmm. Okay, so what was kind of the spark to get you wanting to maybe become a teacher?
As a little girl, I remember playing teacher.
Oh, okay.
I remember setting up all my stuffed animals and dolls and, setting them up like we were in a classroom. And I was the teacher. So there's the first child, right? Like I'm in charge here. I'm the teacher. Yeah. And it seemed just like an obvious path for me. Right. And so I was also in this place where it's like, I don't know what I'm doing. And my friends were starting to pursue these literal careers, and I had to make some choices. So teaching was the obvious choice for me at that point in time, and it ended up being a great choice. Okay, I didn't last very long as a high school teacher. Right. A few years, and it was amazing. But then some other life things happened and put me on a different path.
Okay, so earlier in our conversation, you talked about I think the exercise and movement that kind of came on the scene for you personally during college. So let's maybe just talk about kind of how you started getting involved more into exercise and movement, and kind of what that meant to you and for you, in your 20s and as you got older.
Yeah. So it's changed for me over the years. Okay. At the beginning, in college, because college was just a time of complete indulgence. Yeah. So at that time in my life, exercise became a way to mitigate the effects of all of the drinking and pizza and just sort of that those things that were part of my landscape. Right. So I actually at that time did not have a very healthy relationship to movement. It was more of a punishment piece. Yeah. And it got pretty ugly there for a while for me. But it changed. Honestly, it totally shifted when I found yoga. Okay. And I found yoga when I was living in Chicago, and we were living in this apartment. I was living with some of my best friends from college. They're still some of my best friends in the world. And we were living in this place that was an old brothel. Okay. In Chicago. Yeah. So it was hilarious. But, and this was back in the time of the cassettes, the VHS cassette tapes. And I found some yoga tape, and I can't even remember her name, but she had this very long braid, and I watched it. I did it. I didn't know what I was doing. But when I got to Shavasana at the end, and I was quiet, and I was literally detached from all the stories and all of the muck that was going on in my brain all the time. For the first time in my awareness and in my consciousness, I had the experience of separating myself from that stuff and knowing. And again, it's like one of those things you look back on and can put words to, but it was an experience. It was a visceral experience of, I am not that. I am something different. And separating myself from all of those thoughts and those identifications that really I had personalized and had my whole self totally wrapped up in. Right. So then yoga became a way for me to move away from those stories. Okay, interesting. Yeah. So this was during your undergraduate studies then? No, this is after. Chicago. This is in Chicago. Yeah, this is after college. Okay. It was probably 2002. Okay. We'll say. So 2001 maybe. You have this kind of this initial experience with yoga. Then was that something that you then continue that practice, or was it kind of just
a one-time thing, have this experience, and then life kind of happens, and then you picked it up again?
Yeah.
What is it? Because yoga is your jam. Like, you're an instructor, and it's your thing. So I just want to kind of understand better, and also for the listeners, how this became such a powerful part of your life.
Yeah, so it's such a good question, and I wish I could say, like, from that moment on I was like, yes, this is it, I found myself, but that's not how it happened. I had that experience and then went right back into those patterns and living my life in that way, and pretty acute suffering to be honest, in the midst of like having a great time.
Absolutely.
But then, so I was wrong when I said it was 2002. It was probably about 2000.
Okay.
And then I moved out to San Francisco in 2002. And I would do like a little bit of yoga here and a little bit of yoga there. And it was kind of one of those things that was like always calling to me. And I got out to San Francisco, and where the yoga world was very different than it was in the Midwest.
Right, I'm sure.
Yeah,
I can only imagine.
At that point in time, this was a lot of years ago now. And my roommate, who was actually my roommate in college, in Chicago, she and her boyfriend were going to yoga.
Okay.
And they're like, you should come. And I knew how good it was, but that part of me, that like old part of me that was super intimidated by new experiences, scared to like put myself out there and do something different, resisted it and rejected it, even though I had this deep knowing that it was exactly what I needed.
Right.
Because I was scared, and I thought like, okay, here I am in San Francisco. I'm going to look like the fool going into this yoga class. Everybody knows what they're doing, and here I show up and have no clue, and this is all that I was trying to avoid, right? And so it took a little bit of time. Yeah. It took a little bit of time, and then I went and I melted, and I went again and I melted, and it was just this experience of knowing myself, that experience of knowing myself that I had been looking for so long and couldn't find elsewhere. It allowed me to really remember who I was beyond all the other stuff.
When you say melted, what does that mean?
Like, I kind of like melted into myself.
Okay.
Like the stuff, I was so identified with the limited beliefs in my mind. I was so caught in those loops, in those cycles. Like I was literally living from this place up here that was just story. And so with the practice of yoga, and I didn't know what was happening at the time, but moving my body in that intentional way, breathing, giving myself the space to just think about breathing, to feel in my body, to be embodied, really for the first time that I could ever remember. Allowed all the other stuff to melt, almost like just lift up off of me, like detach. Yeah. So then I was left with me.
Yeah. The real me
that I had been aching for since
birth, probably.
Yeah.
So you graduated from school in Chicago with your master's degree in education. Did you start teaching then in the Chicago area, or did you not start the teaching thing until San Francisco?
So just to clarify, just for sake of honesty, I actually did not finish my master's until last year. I got my certificate for teaching.
Okay, perfect.
So I was certified and had, was accredited to teach.
Of course, yeah.
But I finally just finished it last year.
Cool. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's a big accomplishment.
It felt like a circle that needed to be closed.
Yeah, beautiful.
And then I did my student teaching in Indianapolis. So from Chicago, I moved home, did my student teaching in Indianapolis, or in Westfield, just north of Indianapolis. And then after that, I moved out to San Francisco. Got my first full-time job teaching at an all-girls Catholic high school on the peninsula.
So did you move from Indiana out to San Francisco on your own, or was the catalyst kind of like you already had like a friend and her boyfriend out there?
So I had a couple close friends out there.
Yeah.
And I had spent my whole life in the Midwest. And so I felt like I needed something different. It was sort of that calling from within that I just knew I needed to go somewhere different.
But that was pretty hard for you though, wasn't it?
It was pretty dramatic. And I went out there thinking that I would only be there for about 3 years.
Okay.
And then I would come back.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, a lot of the reason why I chose San Francisco is because it was my mom's favorite city.
Oh, okay.
And at this point in my life, my mom was like the one who I looked to tell me all the things.
Okay. Interesting.
So it ended up being great, and I ended up being there for 12 years.
Wow. Okay. So I wanna just unpack kind of this self-discovery, because up to this point, you've very clearly painted the picture of like you didn't know yourself. You're stuck in these patterns of thought and just kind of like following and just kind of going wherever. And so like this experience of like yoga and really finding yourself, like for me personally, and for us as human beings, like it's everything. Like if we don't know who we are, we live, I believe, lost lives, because we're not living who we are. We're not living our life. We're living, some other version of our life, or we're living somebody else's life. Yeah. And a lot of times you see this with people. They'll get into a relationship with another individual, and they literally get lost in that relationship, in that individual. And then when there's like a divorce or a separation or a breakup, one of them or both of them, it's like catastrophic. There's suicide and like all this craziness because somebody or both of them kind of like got sucked in. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? The one person or both of them, they were both like, they became like one in the sense of like, they're feeding off of each other. They don't know who they are. So this experience with yoga, it sounds like it was very eye-opening. It's a great experience. What did it kind of look like, Jennifer, for you to then begin to discover yourself? Because we have different moments in life and different experiences where it's like kind of like mini awakenings, but you don't really find out who you are through just one experience. It takes time. It takes many experiences. So if you don't mind sharing, what was kind of that, and we're still, if we're open to it, we're still discovering, we're still learning about ourselves, we're still evolving. So I don't want to sound like we're done or you're done, but really, what did it look like for you opening yourself up to the true Jennifer, and what were some of those experiences that really helped you to find yourself?
Yeah, thanks. That's a really good question.
Thank you.
I want to be really upfront and transparent in that I have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, and so do I.
Yeah,
I said that. We're still evolving.
We're still evolving,
yes.
and I am really trying to always remember to look at things like from the beginner, like we were talking about before we started the podcast, but look at things through the perspective of a beginner, and just to really remember, I don't know anything.
Right.
Because when I think that I do know something, then I'm actually closed off to what might be being offered to me. So my intention is to approach things with, like open hands and open heart and just open mind. Like, let me be receptive to what I need to learn in this experience. So for me, it's been a process of remembering and forgetting, and remembering and forgetting, and knowing and unknowing, and losing myself, getting allured by the patterns and the habituated processes, and falling back into that, and then picking my head up and being like, wait, what am I doing?
Right.
What just happened here? And then retethering myself to that inner vastness, that inner wisdom, which when I first kind of started out in this process, that seemed so just inaccessible. It seemed so inaccessible. And I was like, who are these people that are talking about this? How did they do this? Like, what does that look like? And for me, a lot of it, I had to go through some pretty big personal Armageddons that really brought me to my knees, you know, and took away everything that I had tied my boat to. You know, my harbors were destroyed. And, you know, the biggest thing in that was my mom dying. Because she was, because I didn't trust myself and know myself and was scared to actually be vulnerable in that way for fear of getting hurt, I looked to my mom as the one who knew what to do. She was awesome.
Yeah. And
she had this sense of confidence about her that was so believable because it was pure.
Right.
And so I looked to her for the answers, and she had many of them. She didn't hold back with, you know, she would say, okay, well, if you're asking my opinion, then I will tell you.
Right.
And I loved what she had to share. But I allowed her wisdom and her thoughts on things, much to what you're talking about earlier about getting involved in relationships, and the relationships go away, and then you're left like, what? So that was my relationship. Part of my relationship with my mom was, Mom, tell me who to be.
Right. Yeah.
Even Mom, tell me who to marry. Like, tell me how I need to show up in my life. And when she was taken away, I was left with like, what? Like, so now who?
Right.
So now who else is there? And because I was so, I think, broken down, so literally like decimated by it, the experience of it, the only truth I could come up with at that point was me. You know, the only person left now for you to turn to know how to be you is you.
Right.
And in that, in turning into myself, not in a way that was rejecting relationship, but in a way that was opening myself up to like my own inner divinity, like my own inner like essence, really helped me finally feel a sense of wholeness. And then I forget, and then I remember again. But because I spent so much of my life outsourcing and getting so identified by my thoughts, which were all self-limiting. They were all limiting. They were all, I would never talk to anybody the way I talk to myself, ever. But I've lost my train of thought now, but pulling myself kind of out of that and turning inward and belonging to myself for the first time was revolutionary for me.
And so, I mean, you mentioned earlier that your mom passed away, was it 2011?
Yeah.
So at that point, I mean, you were a grown woman.
I was 35, and I was married.
Lived a lot of life and experienced a lot of things, and still, at that age, you know, that one experience with your mom was like really the catalyst for like the Great Awakening. It sounds like for you personally, as a grown 35-year-old woman that was married and a professional and stuff. So that's interesting.
And I ended up having to completely rewrite my life. I still am.
From that point at 35 years old.
Yep. And I still am, but my experience since that moment has been filled with complete grief. I mean, losing my mother has been a horrible thing.
Right.
However, what I had to do then as a result of that has really allowed me to know myself in a way that I never could before.
Right. Was your mom your best friend?
Yeah.
Yeah. My mom's my best friend.
Yeah.
And I've had to come to the point where I love her, and I would do anything for her, and she means absolutely everything to me. But and she comes from kind of like that old school where it's like, the female generally is like at home and cooks, and she's just a servant, and she's like the hardest working woman I've ever met, and I love her. But she also, because of just her personality and how just much she loves her family and her kids and wants to see the best for them, I've realized as I've looked back on my life, as a 31-year-old grown man, she also in that enabled me a lot. And I was very, very attached to my mom because it was easy. I mean, when you have somebody that that loves you, and it's that comfort zone. It's easier. You don't really have to depend upon yourself because your mom will kind of always be there. It's like a security blanket, or something of that nature. But I had to come to that point where it's like I have to, and I'm thankful she's still here and all of that. But I've had to break away from her. You know what I mean? Not in the sense of like push her out of my life, but I've had to break away from that comfort zone and that dependency and relying upon her. And it sounds kind of crazy, being a 31-year-old man, and it was before 31 I realized this, but just within the last couple of years, 28, 29, 30, whatever. But I think it's important for the listeners and for all of us just to realize that even though there's people in our lives that love us deeply and they would do anything and everything for us, it's kind of a two-edged sword. Because like if we allow ourselves just to continue to stay attached to that person, those people, it's kind of what we talked about earlier. We're not able to really find out who we are and stand upon like our 2 feet. Would you agree with that? Or
I think that if we are looking out to someone else to tell us who we are,
right,
we can get confused.
Yeah.
Especially when it is somebody like your mother who we both are very fortunate that we've had good amazing relationships with our moms and amazing moms, and so there's, when you're looking out for somebody outside, like you searching the horizon or looking to these people who are these significant people in your life to tell you who to be or who you are, or you are this version of yourself in relationship to someone else, you can get distracted. Right. You can get distracted. There's a difference between that and looking to somebody else who's holding you maybe to a higher vision of yourself, and saying like, this is what I see in you. Right. And let me reflect that back to you. You know, let me just hold you as this higher vision of yourself. It's nuanced, right? But it talking about just knowing yourself, it's such a personal, individual experience that you're the only one who can have that relationship with yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. So if somebody's listening to this, Jennifer, and they're just going through some tough experiences or whatever, and they just kind of have that internal understanding with themselves that they really don't know who they are, what would you just and again, it's all a personal experience, and we have to kind of figure things out on our own, but it's important for people, I think, to at least share their ideas or their opinions, or maybe some people that have had maybe more life experiences than others. So would you just just speak to that person that internally maybe was kind of in the same situation with you, in the sense of not knowing who they are? What can they do, or what would you suggest that they do to really start finding out who they are and begin that deep inner work that for the listener out there, it's hard, but it's everything.
It's hard. but anything worth doing is hard.
Exactly.
And I do believe that this is probably the hardest work, but the most necessary. And I would say that if you can start from the place of just considering, just like allowing it to be an invitation to consider the possibility that you are not your thoughts. You are not your story. You are not the things that have happened to you. You're not even the decisions that you made yesterday. You are not your emotions. You're not your feelings. These are part of what's being expressed, but they are not the whole you.
Right.
And who you are in your essence is the centered place that is steady and consistent and unwavering behind all of that. And that it's in you. It's absolutely in you. And that to be able to connect to it, my experience has been the best way is to quiet the mind, to quiet it, to allow it to just, the mind it's going to do what it does. It's designed to think.
Right.
It's designed to just go and go and go, and it's just going to keep going and going and going. So we're not trying to stop it, but we're trying to realize that we have the ability and the power to choose to breathe a little space in between our thoughts and ourselves, in between our thoughts and our reactions. So that when you breathe that space into it, like when you allow for breath and spaciousness, you actually connect to the spaciousness within you. And then you're in that, you're moving from that space, from that place that where the truth of you resides. So to kind of break it down onto a simple level is give yourself time to sit and be still and be quiet and to just breathe. 2 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day, 30 seconds is better than nothing. Put your feet on the ground, feel your feet touch the ground, put your hands on your body, know that you are in your body. So many of us spend so much time orbiting outside of ourselves and our thoughts, but just drop into your body, let your mind go to your heart, feel yourself breathe, and just be really curious about what's happening. Be curious about the thoughts that are coming up. Be curious about the feelings that are presenting themselves. And without reacting to it.
Awesome.
So knowing that you're beyond all of that.
Right.
Is what I would say.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Cool. Very cool. All right, let's we talked about some deep stuff. And it's good. No, it's good. I'm leading it in that direction because I love these conversations, and it's very important for human growth and development and maturity. So it's good. So. But I want to keep moving. We've already been going for over an hour, which is it's crazy. Time flies and you're having fun.
It does, yeah.
But I do want to touch on some other things. So you've created. You're the creator of the Choose Love Project. So please just kind of share like what that is and kind of how all of that began and what that means to you.
So it began, I think, after my mom died. Okay. I have this tattoo on my wrist and it says Choose Love.
Cool.
And I wanted to get her name, but she hated tattoos.
Okay.
So I had to kind of modify, and CL were her, Cynthia Long was her maiden name. So I got this tattoo and then didn't think anything really about it except for it was just this homage to my mother. And really also like a beacon for how I want to live my life. About 6 months ago or so, I woke up in the middle of the night and just had this kind of moment where it was like, I need to create something called the Choose Love Project. And what I want this to be is a way for people to do what we've been talking about today.
Okay.
A way for people to sit in a place of self-inquiry, to sit in a place of empowered self-study, so people can realize that the depth of their own power, that they have the ability to choose how they're showing up in their lives. I've spent so much time feeling disempowered and disconnected. And when I actually had the realization that I can choose, I can choose.
Right.
It can shift everything.
Okay.
So there's going to be an online program, and then I'm hosting the first day-long immersion in Indianapolis.
Oh, cool. Okay.
In September. And then we'll
right.
do retreats and things after
Now,
that.
immersion, is that kind of like, I mean, I know what immersion is in the sense of like the definition, but is this kind of like going to be an experience where you just you come and you dive into everything that you have to kind of like share and
so there's a structure for sure.
Yeah.
It's based in yoga. There's a lot of movement.
Okay, yeah.
But the online program, which is going to be released at the end of the summer, is the immersions will be kind of connected to that work, but you don't have to do the online program to do the immersion.
Cool.
So it's just really it's all self-study. It's a program of self-study, empowered self-study,
awesome. Cool.
self-inquiry. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Now, in regards to love, like the word love, because like in our culture, the word love is thrown around for a lot of different things and a lot of different situations, and it's watered down. Now, if you like look up like in the Greek language, the word love, like there's the eros, which is like erotics, like the sexual love. There's phileo, which is like Philadelphia, brotherly love. There's like different forms of the word love. That doesn't really exist in our culture, but I just want for you personally, Jennifer, because you're the creator of the Choose Love Project. You're on Instagram. One of the things you have written is self-love advocate. So the word love, and I understand there's a lot that goes into it, but just as best as you can, what does that word mean to you, and like what does love in action look like? Yeah,
I love that you just said that, because to me, love feels like it should be a verb. It should be a verb. Right. It's a way of being and existing and interfacing with the world. And I think it was Marianne Williamson. Again, I'm sorry if I'm misquoting, but I believe she said that everything is either an act of love or a call for love. And that resonates with me on so many levels. And when I can see things through that lens, I feel like I'm connected to some sort of truth. That love is a choice.
Yeah.
It's a choice. And I think that when we realize that we are empowered to choose how we want to show up, that we're not all the thoughts, we're not the story. Like you can choose who you want to be in 100%. Your life.
Yeah.
Letting love be your like on the marquee of your life, right? Like this is your guiding light. Yeah. This is your goalpost. It helps to simplify things. It just, for me, it's a simple idea, but it's also everything.
It's powerful.
It's powerful. And I think that, when we're talking earlier about like how getting to the root of who you are, like when I think of who we all are at our purest form, we are love. We have been created in love, like we are these really beautiful, divine creations. And there's love within all of us. Right. And so connecting through that, like if we can just let that be the light that connects us to each other and to ourselves. I mean, come on, you know?
Yeah.
And so we're talking a little bit earlier about that need for love, that need for belonging. And to me, it's just that it is that simple. It's like love, knowing yourself as love, and holding yourself in that space, so then you can hold others in that space as well.
Right.
And that's where the belonging occurs.
Now, in regards to love, like in our society and culture, like love is portrayed, you know, like through Hollywood and stuff in certain ways. And we talk about like love being a feeling, but then what you just said is like love is a choice, and I agree with that 100%, because if you hadn't said that, I was going to bring that up. So like at some point, like, you know, we all have feelings and emotions, and you know, we can have a quote unquote feeling of love or a feeling of attraction or something like that, but feelings and emotions change and shift.
Yeah.
Like, could be minute by minute. I mean, you know that as being a mom, it's like, you know, you're having these feelings and these emotions 1 minute, and then, you know, one of your kids does something, and then your feelings and emotions are completely different. So like feelings and emotions, from my experience personally, are not really a good anchor in our lives, because they're all over the place. They're dependent upon other people and situations, circumstances, what have you. But you said, and I agree 100% again, it's like we choose to love. So for me personally, love, there's maybe some sort of feeling or emotion that or feelings and emotions that can be attached to the word love, but love is a choice. Love is an action. It's a mindset. It's a lifestyle. And we have to really come to the realization that, you know, love is, you know, extending our hand to another human being. Like that's true love, yes. Right? Would you agree? Like, I agree. Love breaks through, and love conquers all, as it states in the Bible, and I believe that 100%. So it's more than a feeling and emotion. Yes. It's a choice. It's, again, a mindset. It's a lifestyle. We choose to put love out into the world. We choose to love other people, whether they want to be loved or not. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely. Or statement? Beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I couldn't agree more.
Okay. Cool. I'm just trying to make things clear, because I don't like how the word love it's been watered down in our culture. Because we say we love our dog and then we love our husband or what have you. It's like, I mean, it's just watered down. Yeah. So I think it's important for us not to take that word lightly, and to really understand what true love is. You know, for me personally, it's really important.
Yeah, I think you're really right, and it's like, who are you being? Right. You know, not necessarily like what you're doing, but who are you being? Are you being love? Are you being loving? Are you choosing to show up in love? Right. You know, not like in love with somebody else, right. Or allured or romanced, but like showing up in that way and making choices that are anchored. Right. Like you said, I love the word anchor. You're anchored in that.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Beautiful. All right, we're gonna head towards the finish line here, but okay. I do. It's really important for me, for people that, you know, are married or they're parents and things like that, to give them an opportunity to discuss those things, because generally speaking, I know it is with all the guests I've had on that are that have those relationships or, you know, kids and things like that. It's maybe not everything, but it's a really big part of their life. Yeah. So I just want to give you the opportunity, Jennifer, just to speak about motherhood, what that means to you, what that has meant to you, and maybe one or two things that you have learned within this experience of having kids.
I'm learning every single day. Yeah. It's the most humbling experience. It's the most sacred, beautiful thing that I've ever been a part of. I was really actually quite desperate to have children. I knew that was part of what I wanted in my life, and they're here, and I just look at them and I just think, God, I have been given the opportunity to spend time with these amazing beings, and I could not be more grateful.
Beautiful.
They are my greatest teachers, and they do ask of me to show up in a way that is meaningful and of benefit, and I screw it up all the time.
Right.
And I lose my patience, and I, but I'm, there's something about motherhood that really calls you to look at all the parts of yourself. And so not only am I constantly learning about how to be a mother, but I'm also learning a whole lot about myself that I, need to learn. So, yeah.
Cool. Awesome. That's great. So, is there maybe a place out in Colorado, and it doesn't have to be the Denver area, but like in Colorado that if somebody's listening to this, they're going to visit, or they live out here, maybe they haven't done a lot of exploring, or they want to explore the state more. Is there maybe one or two places in Colorado that you absolutely love and that you wouldn't mind sharing with listeners?
Yeah. We were talking about it earlier, but I love Red Rocks.
Okay. Yeah.
I love Red Rocks. There's something about that, the venue, but then the surrounding land around it that just feels really magnificent to me.
Awesome. And that's here in the Denver area, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And since we're on that topic, I know, why don't you just share with the listeners kind of the yoga thing?
Oh, yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
So at Red Rocks Amphitheater this summer, they have a program called Yoga on the Rocks, and every Saturday in June and July, there's a yoga class from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. And the studio where I teach, the River Yoga, is the studio for the month of June, and I'm teaching this coming Saturday.
Okay,
so
cool.
yeah,
Awesome.
it's
all right.
a beautiful experience.
And that's open to
well, you have to have
a
ticket,
okay,
and I do believe that there might still be some tickets available on StubHub. But
cool. Very good.
Maybe.
Now, I have one question in regards to yoga. Like, if somebody's, because I don't have any experience with yoga, but I know there's like a lot of different like types and forms, and like I've heard like hot yoga and all kinds of different stuff. If somebody's out there that's maybe been thinking about yoga or wants to learn more about yoga, where is a good place, like maybe a type of yoga or something like that? What's a good starting point for somebody that has never had the experience of yoga, never done like those type of movements and stuff? What would be a suggestion for somebody to start?
Yeah, I think a good place is honestly go on YouTube and look up beginner videos.
Okay, perfect.
There's tons of stuff out there just to get you familiar with it. Now, if you're that kind of person who's totally willing to just jump into a new experience, public experience, go to a studio, find a beginner class, and you can ask at the studio that you're going to, like, which would be a good teacher, which would be a good time. But there's so many resources right now that are available. Just go online and
go to YouTube. Okay,
yeah.
Cool. That's great. All right. So, last question that I have for you, Jennifer. What sets your soul on fire?
Hearing my children laugh.
Okay.
Watching them actually love each other just lights me up in a way that I can't even describe. Being in nature, and being with my family, that meaningful connection, laughing like to the point where your stomach hurts, laughter. Witnessing people realize their own goodness. Witnessing people break through something that has been holding them back. Doesn't have to be big. It can be really small, but just the power of the human spirit to me just totally rocks me.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So, Jennifer, I just want to thank you for your time today. I thank you for just the transparency and just sharing your story. I know that just some of that stuff that you shared today will powerfully impact the listeners. So thank you for your time. Thank you for having me into your house. I really appreciate it. So
thank you so much.
Yeah,
it's been a pleasure.
You're very welcome. Yeah. So listeners, I just want to again thank you for tuning into the 127 Fit podcast. If you guys want to find me and reach out to me, you can find me on Instagram. It's at 127fitness. Facebook is at Quentin Vars. And if you guys are listening to this through the iTunes or Apple Podcast app, if you would leave a 5-star review, if you're finding value in the podcast and the guests that I'm bringing on, that would be of great help. If you think you would be a great guest, or if you have a friend or an acquaintance or somebody in the Colorado vicinity that you think would be a great guest or guest for the podcast, you can send me an email and reach out to me. And that email is 127fit@gmail.com. And then again, if you guys are finding value in a specific guest or episode or episodes of the podcast, I would just encourage you and ask you to share that episode or episodes on your Facebook and Instagram stories, and then tag myself at 127fitness in those posts. And then if you guys would just use the hashtag be someone to follow, that would be great, so we can kind of just see the different people that are finding value in the podcast and the guests. And before I leave you with the final statement here, Jennifer, if somebody wants to reach out to you, connect with you, things of that nature, where would be the best place that people can find you?
Thanks for that. Instagram, I have Jennifer Jarrett Wellnes.
Okay.
It's Jarrett Wellnes,
Okay,
and also the Choose Love Project.
Okay, perfect.
And on my website, which is Jennifer Jarrett Wellnes.
Okay, very good. So if you guys want to reach out to Jennifer, touch base with her, that's where you can find her. And I will leave you guys with Proverbs 24:10, which states, if you faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small. This time until next time, I will catch you guys later.